Welcome back to another episode of Bars Loaded podcast. Today we're joined by Killian Hamilton. Killian is the Director of Innovation and Program Design for Prescript, Performance Consultant at Junxion Performance, and Director of Specialty Programming at HOA Tampa. Killian is a super interesting character. He's someone who I've been following online ever since he had 1,500 Instagram followers. He's 10 times that now. And Killian spends time during this podcast outlining the journey he has taken from burying nuclear waste, getting a promotion to burning cancer patients' bed sheets, all the way up to the role that he holds now, working with professional athletes throughout the ranks of NHL, NBL, NFL, and MLB. This was a really, really fun discussion. I think there's a lot in here to take away for everyone. If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe, give us a rating on whatever platform you're listening on. Without further ado, Killian Hamilton. And welcome back to Bars Loaded Podcast with Ben and
Nick. Yeah, good so far. If you guys can hear me, I gotta take these out. I know you guys like headphones. I can't do it, man. I'm gonna have an autistic fit. Yeah, no, otherwise, sorry. Can I say that on here?
You got to fit in
Fuck
great.
yeah, man. We make jokes about us being autistic as fuck all the time.
Okay, beautiful.
I think Nick's back.
1 second, sorry. Should be able to
okay.
hear you guys now. I think I fucked the whole thing, didn't I?
No, that's okay. I think we're good now.
Yeah, I got you loud and clear.
Oh, there we go. So I just had the volume off like a fucking idiot. Sorry about that. No, I can't do the headphones. They freak me out. Can't hear shit. But no, training's going well. Signed up to a rugby squad on Thursday. I don't know. I had money burning a hole in my pocket and nothing to do. So it was like, this will be a good idea. Absolutely terrified to do that again. I haven't played rugby in over a decade. So just going to get absolutely murdered.
Yeah, I saw that. You put that up on your story that you were looking for a club. So someone reached out?
A bunch of clubs reached out. I think rugby's always going to be that sport. You know, nobody's like, we're not accepting guys. You know, everybody was like, oh, yeah, you want to play? But again, you want to go play rugby. The first thing people go, do you play flank? Do you play hooker? I'm like, no. I've never been a forward. I'll never be a forward. If that's what you need me for, I'll go somewhere else, man. Just put me on the wing and let me run. I don't want to be, nose to nose with a bunch of dudes. Thank you.
Yeah, when I say I want to play rugby, what I actually mean is I want to hang around rugby players and put a jersey on and stand on the wing.
Yeah, I want to take a couple kickoffs. I want to play the back 10 minutes of the game, and that's about it. Put me in at the 70th minute. Let me run a few times when everyone's tired, and hopefully no one kills me,
Sounds like a smart move.
Yeah, I have a bunch of concussions, which I just didn't disclose to this team that will remain nameless on this podcast in case somebody randomly listens to this. So yeah, I'm really hoping I don't get knocked out. Lucky enough, though, my father gave me a head harness because he was like, this will fix you. Here's a mouth guard and a head harness to strengthen my neck. So I'm sure I'll be putting a bunch of stupid videos out on the internet of me doing ISOs with a head harness and like a crane measuring tool. I don't know.
Please do.
Yeah, it'll be retarded anyways.
Is that what the crane measuring tool is for?
Yeah. So I do a lot of overcoming isometrics in training. And, I made a joke the other day. It's like every exercise I do, I try to make it RPE 10, which is true. But it's hard to measure that. You're just like, I'm just trying as hard as I can. But it's like, am I really? And also, in an interesting way, what I'm going to do with this hanging crane dynameter is we play on this rugby team plays on Saturdays. So I'm going to take a baseline measurement on Wednesday. Then I'm going to take a post-game measurement of a few exercises after the game on Saturday. I'll take a Sunday morning measurement and a Monday morning measurement. And I'm going to track all this in a spreadsheet like a science experiment. And I'm going to try and use it as a predictor of like fatigue and preparedness, and then adjust my training throughout. And I'm going to do it I'm not just going to, a lot of times like dynameter stuff is just like hand grip tests, like how hard can you grip, which is great. But what I want to do is I want to do it at like specific joint locations. So I'm going to do like a hamstring overcoming isometric. I'll do, an internal rotation overcoming isometric. I'll do a mid thigh pull single arm, mid thigh pull bilateral, and then I'll just track all those measurements. I think those are pretty good tools for like, overall like quality muscular contraction and then just preparedness. You know what I mean? Like a day after a game is like, are my shoulders banged up? Do I have no grip strength? Did I pull a hammy because I got to run a few times? Then hopefully I can track, at least from, memory. What I'll try to do is I'll try to track like meaningful events in game or like meaningful possessions in game. And then I'll be able to write those down. Then I'll be able to note the data I get back from the dynameter, and then I'll be able to kind of track how this season progresses. So, rugby will be a fun thing, go out and play again and be competitive. And obviously, I train, I guess, more athletically is what people say. But, I think at the end of the day, too, rugby here is such a great season. It's 18 games long. It goes through the hottest months of the summer into the fall. And it's like, if I can take 18 games and I can track some amount of data over it, I think it's a good enough collection period to be able to say, here's some good, in-season takeaways from this idea of, not only implementing isometrics, but what does, fatigue really do to an athlete?
That'll be really bloody cool.
That was sorry for that big long rant. You didn't ask about that. But anyways, yeah, that's what I'm using this crane scale for.
No, I love that. I mean, if you haven't picked up already, you're now in the company of other autism affected individuals.
Yeah. Well,
So
I did
both
I did an autism test last year, like a real short, BuzzFeed internet one. And it was like, you scored so well on that one, you should try this one. It was a bit longer. And I did really well on that one. And it sent me to like a really official looking website. It was a really long test. And I got such a high score. And I sent it to Shallow, and I was like, dude, check this out. I was like, high score. And he was like, that means you're most autistic. The higher you score, the more autism you have. And I was like, well, still score pretty high though, man. Still got 90%.
High achiever all round.
A win's a win.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I see it,
So cool. I'm gonna record a more official intro prior to this whole thing, like once we're done. But so like by this stage, everyone's already understands who we're talking to, Killian Hamilton. And I was kind of talking to Ben last night after we finished our one that our weekly podcast that we do on our own. I was like, dude, I'm so excited to talk to Killian tomorrow morning because funny story, I don't know if you remember, but I've actually been following you and chatting to you in the DMs. And I think at the time, I think you probably only had about 1,500 followers on Instagram. I actually found you and started talking to you before I ever even knew who Shallow was or what Prescript was or anything like that. So it's been quite a journey to watch you come from then to now and how that growth has occurred. So thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I'm really excited about it. So if you could just kind of start us off with like the origin story of Killian, like where are you from? Who are you? How did you find the gym? How did that lead you into, how did you start, man? And how did that transition to where you are now, which you just mentioned is a little bit more of an athletic approach to training?
Yeah. No, I was talking about right before I got on this podcast, I was talking to somebody about doing podcasts. I was like, I gotta hop on this podcast. And they were like, oh man, like, I feel like you've done a bunch of those. And I was like, I have, surprised like a lot of these, and sometimes I'm like, oh, what are they going to ask? Or, how's it going to go? But, we've known each other for a long time. And I was like, I'm really excited to talk and, watching, what you do and Ben, seeing you guys talk on the podcast as well. Like I always watch, at least the clips. I find it, really entertaining. So I was excited to come on. But yeah, I think about, the question of like, who I am or where I'm from. I don't want to like get all over the place with it. I'll just give people the details. But, I think people that have followed me on Instagram probably think me training like an athlete is a rather new thing. It's like I just kind of woke up one day and did it. But, history of it is, when I was younger, I started playing, we talked about this earlier, I started playing rugby when I was young played rugby for about a decade, and I ended up getting taken out of the sport by my parents for head injuries. I got a bunch of concussions. I probably had 4 or 5 at the time, as well as I had separated my AC joint twice and tore my PCL. And I was 17 by the time all this happened, and my parents were like, "That's it. Like you're not actually that dumb, so we can't let you keep going. And no one's paying anybody to play rugby, so probably not the thing you want to invest in." So I stopped playing. Fast forward, I graduate high school. I go to 6 days, maybe 10 days in total of university, counting the weekend. I drop out. I become a carpenter in construction. And, one of the guys I work with, really into working out, big bodybuilder guy, and I got nothing to do. So, he would drive me home at the end of the day. And then we just go to the gym. And I'd never worked out up until this point. So I was probably 20 years old. I never did a body tune-up or whatever they called it at our high school. I never went into the weight room in high school ever. If we did, I would just ride the bike and do pull-ups. That's all I would ever do in high school. I never lifted a weight, had no interest in it, just wanted to play sports. So I started working out with this guy. He's kind of a bodybuilder guy. That was really boring. I didn't really like bodybuilding workouts because there was too many exercises. And this is before YouTube and Instagram took off. Like, this is 2011, maybe 2010, 2011. So, you'd get a bodybuilding workout off bodybuilding.com and it would be like 12 exercises. And there's like spider curl this and single arm. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Forget it. And then I ended up finding Westside Barbell. So I was like, well, I still want to work out. I looked up Westside Barbell. I was like, what's powerlifting? And it was like squat, bench, and deadlift. And I was like, that's only 3 movements I have to learn. It's pretty good. Then I looked up Westside Barbell and I was like, all right, well, all these guys are bigger than me and they look cool. The logo is a cool logo. And really, that's why I got into powerlifting, because it was 3 movements. And that's all I did for the first year of powerlifting was squat, bench, and deadlift. I didn't do a single accessory, never trained shoulder, never did just squat, bench, and deadlift. And the Westside Barbell logo was cool. So I was like, well, I'm in. And that was it. And a year after that, I ended up going to Westside, and I trained at Westside for a week, which was a really, really cool experience to actually be in the building. And, regardless of people's opinions on, Louis or Westside or any of that, I think if you're, a part of this industry or physical culture or whatnot, I think it's, there's a lot that came out of that guy doing what he did. And, I think to discredit it is very silly because there's probably, the majority of the information you take in now, you just don't know came from Westside. When it comes to strength training or people mentioning conjugate and velocity, all these things, it's like, if he didn't translate that book, man, nobody would have known what it was. So, he put it in a digestible way. So I trained Westside Barbell Method for a few years, competed at powerlifting. Fast forward from there, I went out to do bobsled. I always tell people I was the world's worst bobsledder or bobsleigh athlete. I know they like to say bobsleigh in Australia. So yeah, I was absolutely terrible at that. I showed up and I was 175 pounds. Everybody else was 220 pounds. So I was like 80 kg. Everybody else was 100 kg. I tried to gain as much weight as I could. I was just drinking whole milk and eating chili. I did very poorly at bobsled. Came home, had no money, went to work at a radioactive waste disposal facility. So I wanted to do bobsleigh really bad. I want to do bobsleigh really bad, and I was like, I got to get really good at sprinting. So this kind of like starts to build this story that people see now, and I was like, all right, well, I was fast, like I was quick. If over 100 meters, I was good, but over the 30 meters I needed for bobsled, I was really, really bad, and everybody would constantly tell me how poor my running form was, my sprinting. They said, you're running, you're not sprinting, and I was like, I don't know what any of you guys are talking about. I did track and field in high school. A coach said I did just fine. And, our track in high school was made of dirt. So that would tell you a lot about what he knew about track and field. So, I looked up this track and field coach. He's this old guy, master's track and field athlete. But, the times he would train guys at, he would train pro footballers and stuff. So he's like, I only coach like 9 a.m. to noon and I'm done for the day. He's like retired. So I was like, all right, I got to get a job that, would allow me that time. So I got this job at a facility where you burned radioactive waste. I would dig. Also, the first assignment I got at this radioactive waste facility was, those big sea cans that are on like ships and trains and stuff. And it was all full of radioactive dirt that they dug up from underneath a nuclear power plant. And it was in this big container. And the entire job was digging it from that container into another container. And you'd be on your hands and knees in this tent. So you'd be on your hands and knees with a really short shovel, and you'd work 12-hour days, and you would shovel it from one bin into another bin until it got down low enough that you could stand up and use a regular size shovel. And I realized later the only reason they gave me this job was because in the interview, I listed that I was an athlete. And they were like, "Are you strong? How good is your back?" And I was like, "My back's fine. What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Great, we have a job for you. Take this shovel, put this respirator on, and dig this dirt." So I was doing that, 12, 13 hours a day at this nuclear radioactive waste place. I finally got promoted to a less strenuous job, which was burning cancer patients' bed sheets. That was the last thing I did there. And at that point, I was like, I got to get out of here, man. Like, I'm going to kill myself. And then I went back into personal training. So there's a period in there where I started working as a personal trainer, and then I'd left to do bobsled. But yeah, I returned to being a personal trainer after that, and was coaching a lot of athletes, and that's kind of where I met Shallow. Ironically enough, me and Jordan Shallow, some of you know him as the Muscle Doc, met at this sushi restaurant because we had a mutual friend. I didn't want to meet Shallow. I didn't know who he was. I didn't follow fitness people at the time on Instagram. I didn't really use social media. So a friend of ours was like, "Oh, do you want to hang out with a Muscle Doc?" And I was like, "I don't know who that is." And he's like, "Oh, he's a nice guy." And he's from Windsor, which is the town that I'm from. And I was like, "Oh, no way." So we went to dinner, we hung out, we talked about training. We kind of saw eye to eye on a lot of things. And, for example, like I'm not working in fitness at this time when I meet Shallow. And then he teaches this course and he's like, "Hey, if you want to show up to the course and hang out, you can." And I showed up. And then on the second day of the course, he's like, "Do you want to talk about anything?" And I was like, "I throw out cancer people's bed sheets and like build houses." And he was like, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" And I was like, "I could talk about this." And he's like, "Yeah, go for it." So, I started like talking to people on the second day about training, and then, kind of just an organic relationship built from there, and, got involved with Prescript. But yeah, I know I zoomed through that. And there's a lot of crazy details, but I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That's where I live and reside. I also work in Tampa Bay, Florida. So I work at an athletic performance institute here in Toronto. Works primarily with the NHL, professional hockey. And then in Florida, I work at a facility that works with Major League Baseball, professional football, and basketball. And that's me.
Dude, you didn't zoom through that. That was incredible. So,
okay. Yeah.
I wish you'd taken longer to go into more detail. I'm like captivated. I was all fuck over here.
Yeah, the least fitnessy fitness thing, man. I think I was, at the beginning of all of this, like reluctant to be involved in this industry at all. I liked lifting. I liked being an athlete. I really liked training people because, I always tell people when I got into, personal training, somebody asked me, "Was like, what was the thing you were most passionate about?" And I was like, "No, it was the thing I was the goodest at, the best at. I was thinking it was the best at that took the least amount of my energy. I'd built houses, I had built mental hospitals, I had built prisons, I'd burned people's bed sheets. All the jobs paid roughly the same amount of money when I started. Like I was getting 25 an hour to dig dirt. I was getting 25 an hour to hammer houses together. I was getting 25 an hour to be a personal trainer. The only one that was inside in the warmth that let me work out in the middle of the day was personal trainer. And I was like, well, I'm sticking with this one. This one fits my lifestyle the best, but at first, I was passionate about being in an industry and learning selfishly for myself. I was like, well, what I thought, my first day at a gym as an idiot was, if I work at a gym, I will get for free all of the knowledge on how to train myself. And what I realized very quickly was no one has a fucking clue how to train anybody at this facility. And I'm still going to have to go out and learn myself. But yeah, I think, my entryway into this industry was just being a failed athlete, and kind of continually like falling back on like, what inherent skill do I have as an uneducated person? It's like, I could build houses. I'm kind of strong and I can, figure out how to put stuff together. I could burn bed sheets because I'm kind of strong and I can do something boring for a long period of time. And it was like personal training was like, well, this is really interesting to me. And, I guess, my previous history as an athlete allows me to be, physically literate enough to work with people. And, it was I started personal training people in 2012. It's 2024. It's been a pretty grueling fucking decade, man, getting to whatever point it is I'm at now.
All right, stick with me here. I'm
Yeah.
going to try and dig into a little
Yeah.
bit of what you just said. I'm going to try and weave in something that I saw you post on Instagram the other day, and I'm going to try
Yeah.
and make it coherent. So just try and
Yeah.
stick with me. So
Yeah.
I come from a very similar background to you, whereas my first job out of high school, being a failed athlete, dropping out of high school because I couldn't play rugby on TV anymore because I hurt my knee and I broke my neck, and that was the end of my career. I left high school and my first job was pressure washing portaloos for 9 hours a day, nonstop. That is quote unquote a shit job.
Literally.
It's horrible, right? So from there, was like, what can I do that is not as shit as this? Training people to be athletic, personal training was like, this is the easiest option. Move into a commercial facility, which was Fitness First at the time, very similar to, I know you have a background in Good Life.
Yeah.
Surrounded by all of these trainers that just complain all day how hard it is to get clients. And I'm like, this is the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. I'm not getting concussion. I'm not getting my knee twisted behind my body, and I'm not pressure cleaning shit out of portaloos all day. So this brings me to the second part of the statement, which I'll try and frame into a question at some point, is I saw you post on Instagram earlier this week, potentially late last week, maybe over the weekend, about you're not sure if mental toughness is even a thing, but self-preservation is. And
Yeah.
as soon as I saw that, I actually screenshotted it and sent it to my wife. And I was like, this is why I love this guy. This is literally like something that I say all of the time, is like, what's a lot of the time that people chalk up, a lot of the things that people chalk up to mental toughness is just like, what's the other option?
Yeah.
I want you to expand upon that a little bit for me, if you can.
Yeah, no, I like that resonated, with you, and I think it resonated with some people, and I think we're just like, we live in a time of like artificial adversity where people are like finding the hardest way to exist because, like, you kind of said something, you're like, well, what's the other option? I think for people right now, like, the current option is so easy. They're like, well, it's got to be, I got to earn it somehow, right? Like cold plunges. I will never get in. I've been in one cold plunge in my life, basically at gunpoint, and I'm not doing it again. Like, there's not a circumstance unless it's 180 degrees outside that I'm getting into a cold plunge, but yeah, I think that idea of like, is there mental toughness or is there just self-preservation? It goes back to another thing that kind of, irritates the shit out of me, which is this idea of like discipline versus motivation, right? There's like an ethical hierarchy to being disciplined and not being motivated. Whereas people don't realize that discipline is a form of motivation. It's the negative form of motivation, right? Like we're all older kind of, compared to a lot of people we're surrounded with, I think, now in this industry. And it's like discipline as a kid was like your old man beating the shit out of you. It's like, that's
Yes.
discipline. So it's like, that's a form of motivation. It's like, if I don't go to school and they call my house and they leave a message that says, I didn't show up at school today, and I don't get home in time to erase that message before my parents listen to it, it's going to be a really bad day. So it really motivated me to run home really quickly and throw the answering machine in the garbage or pour water on the phone. It's like, there's a motivation there, and the motivation was avoiding discipline. So, I think that goes to the idea of mental toughness or self-preservation, is people don't realize, you're most mentally tough in moments where you're just trying to keep it going, like you said, you're mentally tough at times when you're like, there's no other option. And it's the acceptance of the fact there isn't another option that makes you, quote unquote, mentally tough. Or I'd rather just use the word perseverance. I think that's, far better, because at any time, if there's an easier way out, you will take it. And, if somebody asked me, like, not a similar question, but they were asking me the other day about this idea of like, well, like, how do you know if you're motivated or something like that? It's like, because you're not asking the question, am I motivated? You've probably already done the thing you've got to do. Like, I've never had to question if I was motivated to take a piss. I'm like, I gotta go. It's like, it's happening whether I like it or not. You gotta do this thing, man. It's not like I gotta build up the motivation. Is there a structure in place? Do I have a alarm? Do I put my phone in the bathroom and it makes me go to the bathroom? I just gotta go to the bathroom. So I think it is that idea of, if you're at a point where you're asking the question of like, how do I become more mentally tough? I think the stakes aren't high enough, and maybe you don't need to like do a cold plunge or you don't have to compete at high rocks. You definitely don't have to do that to be mentally tough. But maybe you need to find, spaces in your life where there isn't another option but doing the thing you need to do. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why I kind of made the joke. I was like, I don't know, go to war. Like, I'm not a mentally tough person whatsoever. I can't even get through a bottle of water. It took me 2 days to drink this bottle. I'm not mentally tough. I drank it. I went, not really a big fan, and I got a Gatorade instead, So I'm not mentally tough, by any stretch of the means. I think every moment in my life where it might be a cool story to tell, where it's like, I was doing this shit job, is shoveling dirt all day. That's just a fact. I'm just, telling people the honesty of it. It's not to be like, oh, I was, willing to shovel 12 hours a day. I just didn't have any money. You know what I mean? It was stuck in that big thing. I had to be in the bin, So yeah, I also think if you're focused on questions like motivation versus discipline, or questions of like mental toughness, you gotta get outside. There's gotta be something. You gotta have too much time on your hands. You know what I mean? And if you have a lot of time on your hands and you don't need to do anything else, like if you can sit on the couch at the end of the day and be like, oh, it's 3 p.m. and I am done, that might be a great life. And it might be about like reflecting on how sick it is that that's how you exist, and not being like, I need to bleed to get my rent paid. Like that's not, there's not, and at the end of the day, right? Like there's no trophies handed out. Everybody's just existing. I have no idea what the hell anybody does. Like I ride the subway. There's so many people on the subway. I couldn't tell you how good or bad their life is or what they do for a living. We're just all on the subway at 3 p.m. Eventually these details are so ridiculous. They just don't affect anything. I don't know if that answered that question or expanded on it.
It did. That was
Okay.
awesome. And thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for.
So, I know you've obviously spoken about some of the jobs that you sort of worked in, in the lead up to sort of like stepping into the fitness industry, and then obviously, with the sort of like brief run over you gave us, is like what you do, who you work with, and all that sort of stuff. If we kind of if we put like perseverance and self-preservation to the side, is there something that sort of like really drives you? Like I know we've spoken to some people and they're like, oh, like my family really drives me to succeed because I want to set them up. Is there something specific to you where you're like, this is my driving force that sort of guides my decision making?
Yeah, and I'm not going to, we talked about this already. I don't have the most greatest emotional intelligence. It's not going to be like a heartwarming one. It's not like for my family or for my legacy. I think what it is for me in a very selfish way. I know where I started. Like, I know how stupid I was when I started being a personal trainer. Like, I still remember the workout that I gave in an interview, and it wasn't even that bad. But it was just like such a workout, It was like lat pull down, seated row, hamstring curl, walking lunge. It was like, that's actually a good workout. But at the same time, it was just like, I didn't know it was, though. I wrote the 5 exercises down I could think of that weren't squat, bench, and deadlift. I was like, that's the only other accessories I know of. So, I know how stupid I was when I started, and I know I know I sat in a room with people that had degrees, and I know I sat there and I thought like, man, I'm never going to figure this job out. Like, I'm never going to know the exercises to these people. And I remember asking a guy, I was like, man, is there a book with like a list of all the exercises that you give to people that I could just read? Like, I don't know how you come up with these things. And then he gave me the answer. Everybody goes, oh, experience and time in the industry and you'll figure stuff out. And I was like, all right, shut the fuck up. Never mind. Like, let's just go back on bodybuilding.com, I guess. But, I think like to go back to your question of like, is there something that drives me? I think about this a lot lately. I think, I'm knowing how stupid I was when I started and feeling not that I'm smart now at all. Not saying that, but knowing how much smarter I am than the guy who I was in 2011, like knowing the training decisions I make now versus 2011. Like, for example, let's put this into perspective. In the beginning of this call, I told you guys I bought a hanging crane dynameter to measure pounds per square inch of force. And I'm going to use it over this like somewhat controlled study of joint angle relationships of isometric strength over a course of 18 weeks. When I first started going to the gym, I used to go on Thursday at 6 a.m. and try to deadlift a 1 rep max. If I couldn't get it, I would go home, eat an entire rotisserie chicken, drink 1 liter of chocolate milk, and a pint of watermelon, I would go back at noon and try to lift the weight again. And if I got it, I would go upstairs and get an ice cream. That was my training protocol. That was literally what I did every single week until it stopped working and I got very hurt. But it's like, now I'm tracking data on the isometric force over the course of weeks with joint angles. I think what drives me is a curiosity. Like, I think, if I've gotten this far, on nothing, on a ephedrine and pre-workout, how much, I think it's like, how much further can I go? And I think it's just like a big difference is, I think I have a burning curiosity to just understand. Like, I want to understand everything, even things I don't agree with. I at least want to know why it is the way it is, and then I can disagree with it better. It's like, I want to have an argument with the PRI guy and be able to go, it doesn't matter. I want to know enough to be able to go, it doesn't matter, and here's why. Or I want to be able to post the insane shit that I do and then have somebody be like, why are you doing that? And have a conversation. This is exactly why. And people go, oh, wow, okay, that actually makes sense. And it's obviously driven by ego, as everyone's drive is. I think it's okay. And I think that's what it is. I think I am so, this comes off I'll sound like a dick, but I think I recognize and accept what value having a high level of ego or an ego-driven approach to things is. And I think I've just come to an acceptance of it. Whereas I think other people will always be slowed down in their growth and pursuit of whatever it is they want by being self-conscious of having an ego. And it's like, I won't be.
Is that something that you have realized later in life, or is that something that you've always kind of accepted, or something that you struggled with in the past?
Oh, no, for sure. Definitely later in life. I don't know if it's just fatigue and like jadedness. Like, I'm 31 years old and I feel like I'm on my deathbed. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm like 4 more years and it's over, guys. Like, we're doing a eulogy in 4 years for me, but, and maybe that's just life experience. Like, maybe I've just done so many things and just been exposed to so many groups of aggravating people. And I've realized that no matter what the job is or where you work, there's 3 people you'll meet in life. They're just covered in different skin. But, no, early on, there's definitely a high level of self-consciousness. And, I don't want to say imposter syndrome, because like, I didn't get a job as a personal trainer and then feel like, oh, I didn't deserve this job. No, everybody deserves the job. I didn't feel like an imposter. I just went, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing here. And it was more matter of fact. I was just like, well, this is going to be torturous if I do this for the rest of my life because I don't know what I'm doing, but no, I think as I've gotten older, I've definitely come to this acceptance that like the best decisions you can make are selfish decisions, because they're the only decisions at 1 a.m. in the morning you'll be motivated to follow through on, is something that you're selfishly motivated to do. And for me, it's like, I want to be 50 years old wearing no shoes, a cut off shirt and track pants in the middle of the field somewhere, and have people like fly out and want to work with me no matter how bizarre I look or act or the things I say. And I'm like recommending, people read a book on philosophy when they ask me about training. Like, I want to be that guy, and I want to have a body of work so, indisputable that I can be that guy and nobody goes, that guy's full of shit. You know what I mean? Like, no offense to David Weck, but like, no one's ever going to send me a David Weck post and be like, this guy might have everyone's going to be like, no, this fucking guy sucks, So for me, it's like, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be a guy equally as weird as David Weck, but the guy that people share and they're like, oh, this fucking guy gets it, dude. He's nuts, completely insane, but he's got something here, So I think, that's what it is. That's my driving force. I just want to be who I am in 50 years and people still be like, probably something worth traveling out to talk to him about.
On the sort of tail end of that, has there been like a really standout pivotal, whether it be conversation you've had with someone, whether it's like a consultation you've had, attending like a seminar, has there been like something pivotal that stands out to you as kind of like almost like the turning point in your career to really set you on the trajectory that you're on now?
Oh man, that's, I think
for
there
example,
could be,
like when I met Shallow back in 2017, that was kind of mine.
Yeah.
Like, that was like the first time I'd really learnt from someone that had probably come out from the States that, actually could speak about lifting weights with a degree of intelligence. There's some other people there, but like that was the one that like really stood out, and then that kind of set me on the trajectory that I am now. I'm just wondering if there was something, again, whether it's like attending a seminar, a book, or a conversation with someone that had kind of did the same for you.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I feel I would regret to not say it's probably a conversation with Shallow, because I think I'm very open with him and with anybody to recognize the impact he's had on my career in this industry. Whether or not I did something valuable enough with the opportunity to be where I'm at today, I don't think I would have entertained an opportunity to do anything had he not had dinner with me and said I might have something there. I think so. Probably the most pivotal thing, if you want to look at, my career now. And like, I know Nick was saying, like, he remembers when I had like 1,500 followers. It's like, man, I remember when I had 250 followers, and I was using a shattered iPhone 5. And then Shallow was like, you have to buy a new phone. You can't use that phone. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it still calls. And he was like, it's not how, the world works in 2019. But so I would say, probably definitely like, we had sushi, me and Shallow, with my friend Jordan Moffat, who owns Bacon and Barbells. That's probably pretty pivotal. Like I showed him this infographic I made in like Adobe Spark of how I lay out a training session. And it was based on skill acquisition. This was way back like 2017, 2018. And I was like, here's the cognitive phase. Here's the associative phase where we take those skills and we apply them to whatever that athlete's trying to get better at. And then here's the autonomous phase where we break into, whatever and whatnot. It's like, I didn't come up with this. This is literally, I just stole the layout of a rugby practice, and I just made it weightlifting, right? You go to a rugby practice, you warm up and do a bunch of dickhead stuff, do a bunch of passing drills, foundational stuff. Then you break into the pack and the backs, you run your plays, couple set pieces, and then you scrimmage at the end. Cognitive, associative, autonomous. Pass the fucking ball around, run some plays, scrimmage at the end. And it was like, again, I told you guys, I was stupid and I was an athlete. And I was like, I don't know how to write a workout. So I was like, what if the workout was just a practice, but for lifting weights? And I was like, come in, we do these like muscle isolation things. Then we do the deadlift. And then at the end, we have some kind of gamified challenge for my client. I don't know, whatever. So it's like, I remember showing that to him, and I was explaining cognitive, associative, autonomous and whatever. And he was like, you got something here. Like, this is really smart. And it sounds like what we do, just using different words. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I don't know anything about biomechanics, So I bought a book on anatomy. I bought Netter's Anatomy after I met Shallow. Because, until I met Shallow, I didn't know what a multifidus was, or a brachialis or something, gracilis. I was like, I don't know what the fuck these are, dude. But I bought this book on anatomy. I crammed the shit out of it. I'm pretty confident talking about biomechanics and anatomy now, but at the time I had nothing to do with that. So I would say, probably having sushi with Shallow is the most pivotal moment in my entire career. I would think the second most pivotal moment would be working with and for who I work for now in Florida, Yo Murphy, who I work for at his facility. I don't want to give the role a title until it's on paper, but I essentially act as like kind of like a director of specialty programming. So with the pro groups that we get in, or prospect groups, so college football, NFL, combine, NBA pre-draft, MLB, I'm kind of like at the helm of writing the programming and working alongside the speed development team, the weightlifting team, and the medical team to make sure players are getting the exact programming they need. That's kind of the role I have now. But I remember. So, anyways, this is going to answer your question as a pivotal moment. So, and I think a necessary part of my story and should help people in this industry, I think. But so I have a job now at this facility in Florida, and I get to work with pro athletes. It's obviously the coolest job in the entire world. I get to teach sprinting. I get to lift weights. It's everything I would have wanted to do, had I thought I could ever have a career in this. How I got this job was moving to Florida for 16 weeks, still paying rent in Toronto, and living out of Airbnbs for 16 weeks, not getting paid, and just interning at this facility. And like coming in on Sundays and running speed workouts for guys, writing guys workouts to take home, doing whatever it is the facility needed, like doing things anyone would do as an intern. I didn't go over and above. I did what I needed to do. And I remember it was probably, of the 16 weeks, this is probably week 7, definitely like week 7, week 8 of the 16 weeks. And it's Friday, and I'm talking to Yo, and he asked me, he's like, hey, are you going to stay around, or are you going to head home? I was like, no, I'm going to stay and I'm going to work out. And I was like, by the way, I just want to apologize. I was like, I didn't feel like I did my best this week. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I was like, you probably know. I'm like, you can feel it. I was like, I was here, but I was like, I couldn't do, what I do at, I feel like the level I normally do it at. And I was like, I just want to apologize, but I was like, I'm going to make sure I come in next week. I fucking sort out my own issues and I come in here and I do the job I told you I could do. And he's like, listen, had you not said that to me, I wouldn't notice. And he's like, I still don't necessarily agree. And he's like, but at least you have a standard for yourself, and I think, either the conversation with Shallow where it was like, hey, like you might have something here, you might understand this. That just gave me it just gave me the confidence to think about stuff creatively. When Shallow was like, maybe you have a good idea. I was like, oh, like there is creativity in this industry. I don't have to listen or reference people, and I don't have to copy people. Like I could do whatever I want and it might be valuable. And I just stopped, following people on Instagram and just didn't pay attention to what other people were doing. And then, I think having that conversation with, Yo now, who's definitely someone very close to me and somebody I respect a lot, and him just saying like, at least you have a standard for yourself, and saying like, the one thing that anybody can do differently than anyone else is just work hard, and I think that's so funny. It's at the end of the day in this industry, you'll probably come to a point where the most unindividual aspect of you is what you know and how you go about implementing it. The most individual thing you can be is somebody who works hard, and I think that if my driving thing is just the ego that I can be better, know more, do better, I think, the other factor is like, I know that the only thing that sets anyone apart is their ability to work hard. And I'm like, well, at least I know I can do that. It's like, point me in a direction, I'll probably work pretty fucking hard at it.
Yeah, sick. I love that. So I'm going to try and tie a few of those things together, because I can kind of see a little bit of an overarching trend here of similarities in the fact that, you mentioned kind of not being as confident, or not being I forget the exact term that you used when you were younger, selfish, and then that kind of becoming more evident as you got older and as you gained more knowledge and more self-confidence. And we can see that now, and you can see the same kind of arc going from starting as a PT in Good Life after burning cancer sheets and working with Gen Pop, to now aligning with Jordan and Yo Murphy, and training NHL, MLB athletes, working with professionals, having a much deeper understanding of like what's actually happening within programs, within exercise, within biomechanics, and all of the things surrounding that. I would really like to kind of get your perspective on what is maybe one principle, or one kind of thing that you can draw parallels between when you didn't know anything and you were training Gen Pop clients, that is still applicable now when you're working with pro athletes and a fuckload more. And what is something that you've definitely changed your opinion on, or that doesn't hold true working through that same timeline?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind, the thing that when I didn't know anything that I did, and is still valid now across Gen Pop to professional athletes, was, I think at the very beginning, maybe honestly because of a lack of knowledge of what I was actually doing, I just worked really hard at being a people person, which doesn't come naturally to me. But in that environment, I realized I was like, well, I don't have the degrees and like the big words that other people have. I just kind of have to be somebody that people fuck with and they want to hang out with, So when I first started, I realized like, a great deal of my job at the beginning was learning as much as possible about the person I was going to work with. So like there was no dead air. I'd always have something to talk about, something to bring up on a Monday with them, and whatnot. And I think that was a big thing. And I realized even with professional athletes now, the thing that connects general population people and professional athletes together is both groups are probably really bad at training in the weight room. They probably have no idea what they're doing. And neither group really wants to be there either. They have another thing they actually do that pays them, that they want to do that and then kind of go to bed. So I realized, having that knowledge of that person and, what they like and what they don't like and what they want to listen to on Spotify and whatever that might be, like, that was the thing that made people trust and believe in you and want to hang out with you. Even now, the first week of training camp with professional athletes, I always go, like, what do you want on Spotify? What's the playlist? I'm like, do you have a playlist? I'm like, share it with me and, we'll queue it up. If you have one, send it over, otherwise, like, let me know and I'll make sure we always have it on, and I think that's something that people look past, but, the second half of your question was what's something I didn't or what's something I've changed my mind on, I guess, or realize is important or not important later. Volume. There was a point in my career where I really thought fucking volume meant the word actually had a value or a meaning. And I was like, man, how much more volume can I do? Where it's like, if I do more volume of this, I'll get better. And I have this argument with people all the time, and I probably do it in I have it in a conversation in a very bad way, but I think thinking about volume at all is very silly because we think of volume in like sets and reps. And, we taught a course one time and this guy was like, I just have a question. I was like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, well, what do you think? There's a lot of guys that say like 50 sets of shoulders is like the optimal amount of shoulders. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, what is 50 sets of what? 50 sets of 1, 50 sets of 100, 50 sets of barbell press, 50 sets of cable ladder. I'm like, see all the other valuable information that has nothing to do with how many sets of whatever you did was. But you know what, though? I was that guy when I started, and like I made a spreadsheet once that added up the total repetitions performed of every movement. And I was like, if the total reps go up, that's progressive overload. And you know how much time I wasted, not only in training, but in making the spreadsheet where I wasn't even training, like probably got something out of the program and definitely got nothing out of making a spreadsheet that tracks total volume. So, I think I thought percentages and volume and math was something that mattered in what we do. And I think now there's probably such an acute application of any of that, maybe Olympic weightlifting, maybe pro powerlifting. But, the other times, man, it's like RPE, hiring a therapist to get your emotional issues out so your RPE is accurate when you're actually at the gym. That's the biggest investment you can make, man, is learn how to use RPE and then get a therapist that teaches you how to not fuck the RPE up. You get those two things, man, you'll be the world's greatest athlete. So I think, that's the biggest change is like everything I do is RPE now. And like, frankly, most of what I do isn't even like RPE and lifts. It's RPE 10 isometrics where it's like kind of random anyways, and I don't even max effort deadlift. I just max effort mid thigh pull. And I'm like, all right, feel pretty strong or like yield to this weight for X amount of time. So yeah, I think I placed a lot of value on a high volume of work. And I realized that has nothing to do with anything anymore.
Yeah, it's funny that you mention just kind of being someone that people fuck with. Funny story about you that you probably don't even know ever happened, but
yeah, probably.
I think you probably definitely don't know. Yeah. Way back when probably about 6 months after I first started following you, we had shared a few DMs and a few conversations about a couple of my posts that I think you DM'd back to me and you were like, hey man, I really kind of like what you're doing here. Mm-hmm. I was managing a 24-hour, not 24-hour fitness, a world gym here, which is kind of like the Australian version of 24-hour fitness. And my PT manager at the time, he came into my office and he was like, hey man, so I noticed that you follow this guy on Instagram. His name's Killian Hamilton. I'm thinking about doing his course, Skill Acquisition. Like, what do you know about him? Like, do you think I should do this or not? This guy's name's Jared Barnett. I don't know if you remember Jared. Yeah, Jared did your course. I think he was talking to you about doing a mentorship at some point as well. And I was like, look, man, I don't know. I've had a few conversations with him. All I know is I'm the most pessimistic human being on the planet, and this guy's probably the only person that I put above myself. So I definitely fuck with him. Like, you should do whatever he says. He's cool.
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
So that's kind of how that started. But yeah, funny story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was kind of my first perception of you, and that was my review of you. So I think that definitely holds true, and
yeah,
super
I
valuable.
think most people who hear me, like maybe on this podcast or RX Radio podcasts, probably think I'm a dick, and I probably am. I just don't think I don't think I put in any effort to come off any other way than however I'm feeling in that moment. And not even just saying like I'm always upset about stuff. Sometimes I'm having a great time. But other times like stuff's just irritating, and I don't think I put in any effort to filter that, and what I can say, in my own defense is anyone who's ever met me in person, all they've ever said when they meet me in person is you're the exact same person you were online as you are in person. And that's not even a compliment sometimes, but at least I'm just the exact same person I am online, and I think me and Shal always talk about this all the time. Like my impulsive emotions or people describe it as passion. It's not just my unfilteredness, I guess, in a way. It definitely doesn't always do me favors. It'd be way cool if I was like political and like had a YouTube voice and knew how to navigate the space we're in, but I don't, and I just don't put any effort into that aspect of this job. I think I put a lot of effort into like thinking about training, and not the other side of it. So, I would say that about myself. If you like me or if you don't like me, the great thing is in real life, you're going to feel the same way. So it's like, if you don't like me on Instagram, never go out of your way to meet me in real life. I'm not making it any better. It's going to suck just as much.
Yeah, and if anyone that is listening wants a little bit more of an in-depth insight to Killian to figure out if they do like him or not, there's a fantastic podcast that he did with Hybrid and Steffi and Hayden.
Oh, Jesus
and
yeah, you'll hate me for that one.
That was fantastic.
Oh man, it was the best of times and the worst of times, man. But yeah, I'm gonna say it. I'm not gonna not say it. And I should probably learn. I'm 31 years old. There's probably a growth here that could happen where I, become better at the other side of things for business sake, maybe. But then, like maybe me being more cautious or caring about communication and how people perceive me, maybe by doing that, it like stunts the way I think of things. Like maybe I become too cautious in the way I approach training or things I want to try and do or approach opportunities. So as much as there's probably a value to everyone but myself by me becoming better at communicating, there's probably a disadvantage to myself, and selfishly, I don't want to disadvantage whatever unique thought process I have.
Nice. So we have like a couple of questions that we generally like to ask in the podcast, and obviously, I know you've obviously spoken about Shallow and Murphy being fairly important characters in your life. So I'm going to just preface this question with saying you can't choose either one of those two. But if there was anyone dead or alive that you could sit down and share a meal with and talk to them for say an hour or two, who would it be and why?
So I have this friend John, who lives in Florida. He's very much alive. But I would, given any chance to sit down and have a meal with John, I have taken and I will take. Story of it. So, like, to give context to this and why I'm saying that would be the person, I consider this person my, easily my best friend. He's my role model. He's the person I look up to more than anyone else in the entire world. He means a ton to me, and there was one time where he was going away, and they were having a going away party for him. And he messaged me and he said, "Hey, we're all having dinner at this restaurant in New York. I live in Toronto. Toronto, New York's not far. It's about an hour on a plane." He said, "We're all going to have lunch in this restaurant on the weekend in New York. Like, do you want to come? Like, fly in and have dinner. We'll hang out." And I was like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll be there." And he's like, "All right, well," this was like Thursday. And he's like, "Well, yeah, dinner's on Saturday." And I was like, "Great. Yeah, I'll grab a ticket and I'll go." And I did get a ticket and I did go. I wasn't in Toronto. I was in London, England. And I flew in just to have this dinner with my best friend John. So yeah, dead or alive, it would be John. I can't think of another person that I would fly out of any country to go and have dinner with. But if John called me and said we're eating at 3 p.m., I'd find a way to be there.
Is there a reason why he holds such a special place to you?
Yeah, I think like he's pretty pivotal in like so I listened to a lot of hardcore music growing up, like hardcore punk music. Probably shaped a lot of probably got me in the gym in a lot of ways or motivated me to stay in the gym after I'd been exposed to the gym. I went to shows as a kid all the time, and he was pretty involved in that community. And, I got to finally meet him in real life, later on. And it was so exciting to me to meet somebody who, from the peripheral I looked up to and was more cool upon meeting them in real life. And, he's always been there for me, always would be there for me. And I think he's one of the few people I could say that about in a really genuine way. So yeah, my friend John, I have another friend, Brendan, and I have another friend Jim, and those three guys I would travel anywhere in the world to sit down and eat with.
Do you still listen to hardcore?
Yeah, all the time. Like all of my friends are in hardcore bands. So I if I didn't want to listen to it, which oftentimes I don't, I can't avoid it because I'm going to fly somewhere to go to a show where I usually just stand in the parking lot anyways.
Awesome. So Ben, this one's for you. Thank you so much for not bringing up biceps.
We still have time. So I was literally hanging on to that one until like the very end. I was going to just like slide it in there.
So to fill you in, Killian, obviously, I just shot you a DM about coaching, which I've been talking to Ben about. Me wanting to do that for a little while, and I want you to make me like I want you to make me as much of a weapon as I was when I played rugby, but not actually play. Like I want the guys on the team to be like, dude, like he's leading the way. Like he gets the highest beep test. He's the strongest in the weight room and he's jacked as fuck. Like they're kind of like my 3 goals. And I want to be really fast and do a track meet. The other thing is though, I've always wanted big arms, but I just hate training arms.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that Ben just keeps bullying me about is like, if you want big arms, you have to train your arms. And I'm like, dude, I just think that's super lame. I'm not going to do it.
And then I call him a little bitch for complaining about it, even though he's not doing anything about it.
Man, I got to tell you, like the first 7 years of working out, I hated training upper body and hated training arms. If there is a muscle group now that I can train, it's going to be arms. Like I'm going to go to the gym if it's just to train arms. But again, like the way I train arms, like, yeah, not going to do a high cable bicep curl. Sorry, shallow. But like maybe I'll do a preacher curl, I'll do a hammer curl, I'll do a preacher curl or some tricep thing or whatever. But also the way I train arms now is like impulse stuff and isometrics and arm wrestling, an invisible man in the gym with a toe strap and a dynameter attached to it, and I think, I think everyone should train arms. I think rugby motivates me just like jiu-jitsu motivated me to train arms more than I had previously because I was like, God damn it, someone's going to break my arm. So I got to figure out how to get these things stronger. But I think training arms is pretty lame if you do like an arm day. And you know what? Actually, an arm day is not lame. The thing that makes training arms lame is when people try to like science it. When they're trying to like tell you about the exercises, I don't care. Like, dude, I'm doing the preacher curl and I'm doing the single arm preacher curl. And I'm like probably doing the rope tricep extension. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm doing the rope tricep extension. I don't care if the science doesn't work out. It's sick.
Yeah. And I just hate that you have to look at yourself in the mirror when you're training arms. Cause like I'm training arms and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, dude, you're like 6'6" and you're bald. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you training arms?
Yeah. I mean,
like this self-hatred staring back at me.
Yeah, I'm almost a foot shorter than you, and I feel equally stupid training arms, because I'm like curling 15 pounds on the cable machine like an asshole, but sometimes then I just get on the GHD and mog everyone, and then I don't feel bad anymore, like laugh at me now, wait till I do this razor curl back bend thing I'm about to do, and then no one will be laughing, but they still laugh. It's fine. You just get over it.
You just get over it. Cool. So we have this this final kind of little question that we like to do where each guest gets to ask the following guest a question.
Sure.
You don't get to know who the guest was, and then you get an opportunity then to ask the next guest a question. So The question from our previous guest was, if in 10 years' time you're still on the path that you're on now, will you look back and be proud of what you've done?
All right. So, yes, I will. Just like I think, I've been on this path, I guess, 12 years now. And I looked back 10 years ago. And like I said, I was like, damn, that guy's an idiot, Probably somebody I would have been pretty harsh on Instagram had I had the confidence to post anything. So yeah, I think, like I said, I'm motivated or driven to be a part of this industry based on that idea of like, how much further can I get? So yeah, 100%. And, bring it back to hardcore. There's this band, Foundation, that I really liked when I was younger. And to paraphrase them, I had this T-shirt, and the T-shirt had like a kid with like an AR-15 on it, and it said, if the man I once was saw the man I am now, I'd spit right in his face. And it's like, that's always been my motivation, is like, I never want to let down my younger self. So it's like, I wanted to be a pro athlete, and obviously I was a terrible athlete and never got anywhere. And it's like, but if me at 16 saw the fact that I was working with pro NFL players now, I would be pretty stoked about that. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, if in 10 years I'm not doing that, if I'm back at a good life being a jerk with a track jacket on, me now is going to be like, dude, what happened? So yeah, no, I definitely, I think wherever I get to in 10 years, I'll be very excited about where I was right now. Because I think I'm at the point in my career where it's like, all I can do is lose, like I have to work. I would have to actively work to make my life worse. My life's pretty good.
Sick. I love that, man. And then off the back of that, what would you kind of like to pass on as a question to the next guest?
That's crazy. What would I ask the next guest? I would ask the next guest. If they can remember their first ever workout they did in a gym. Their first ever workout in a gym, if they can remember it, and what it was.
Sick. I can remember mine. Can you remember yours?
I do remember mine. It was really stupid.
What was it?
So I went into the gym and I did the seated row with the V handle, and I did as many of the plates on that cable machine as I could. I think I got to 150 or something. And then I did the hammer strength deadlift machine, which is just that machine people do shrugs on. Then I did that, and I did 4 sets of 20 on that. Then I went over and I did dips, and then I did 2,400 meters on the rowing machine. So I literally and I was like 100 and I was like 66 kilos. So I just had like no neck, and that was it. I just was a thumb with 2 pipe cleaners tied to the side.
Beautiful. You did one extra exercise than me. My first workout was I went to the gym with 2 of my rugby mates, and we started on leg press.
Amazing.
We did 3 sets of leg press, and then we went to leg extension. And after 1 set, we were like, fuck, this feels really good. Let's just keep doing sets of this until one of us can't do sets anymore and that person loses. Yes. So we ended up doing like 15 sets of leg extension. That was the entire workout.
Yeah. Amazing. The last thing I'll say is what I remember from my first gym membership. And remember, I was like 19 or 20 when I got a gym membership. I remember being honestly afraid of the leg press and afraid of bench press. I actually had a fear of those 2 machines. I was like, I always thought the leg press was going to crush me, even though my legs were strong. I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to use it. And bench press, I was incredibly weak when I started working out. Like my legs were strong, but I think I benched like 155 pound, benched like 70 kilos. I benched 70 kilos for like 9 months. And I was like, does this ever get heavier? Like, what are people doing? People are benching 2-3 plates. And I was like, how did they do that? I was just getting crushed under 70 kilos. So that's what I'll remember of my first year was not understanding how the leg press machine worked and then being afraid to bench press.
Perfect. Well, Killian, thanks so much for joining us, man. I can't believe that it's been an hour and we didn't find time to dig in more deeper into bobsledding and training professional athletes. So I definitely think we should try and find a time to run this back and dig into a little bit more of the autistic training side of things, do a few cool runnings references, and see what comes out of it. But where can people find you if they like what they hear?
Yeah, Instagram. I think that's just where you should find anyone nowadays. Killian.Hamilton on Instagram. I work for Prescript, pre-script.com. I teach the L1 course, the skill acquisition course, and I'm one of the head instructors of our live in-person internship L3. That's at the facility that I work out of in Tampa. I also work at Junxion Performance in Toronto, Junxion Performance. We're opening a new facility mid-June. Be pretty incredible. We're going to have all kinds of insane stuff there. So if anybody takes a trip to Toronto there, hit me up on Instagram, and I'll have a facility you can come by and hang. Contrary to popular belief, if you come to Toronto and want to hang, we can work out. We're just going to do the GHD, though.
Perfect.
Awesome,
thanks so much, man.
Yeah, no, thanks, you guys. This was easily one of the best podcasts I've done.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course.